Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. Today's a follow up to Evan Marks, who happened to be my guest yesterday. And oh my goodness, was it a genuine pleasure to get to know him. So he's a coach. He started out as an investor. He used to play D1 lacrosse, and he has ended up in this coaching space where he works with executives and CEOs and all kinds of people, Division One athletes, professional athletes, and his whole purpose around that is to help them understand that they have a lot more control over their emotions than they realize, and that their feelings drive their behaviors. And when they shift those behaviors, great things happen. He said so many fantastic things. One of the big things that he talked about was the importance of gratitude and how gratitude needs to be something that we're not just practicing, but that we're feeling, because that can impact how we react to things. And I think that was an excellent reminder that that's not a heavy lift. It is not difficult to find those things to be grateful for. The practice of remembering that you're grateful for those things, that's a little more difficult, and that's something that he helps people do. The other thing that he talked about was the importance of getting curious and thoughtfully pushing yourself into that space of, wonder why that happened that way. He and I, towards the end, talked about systems one and systems two thinking and why it's so important that we not react in our systems one thinking, which is our implicit biases and biases, our way that we were brought up, our experiences, and instead shifting into that systems two type of thinking where we take a minute to thoughtfully react instead of knee jerk react, which I think is important. I recently listened to the Mindset Mentor, and in that podcast, I learned an analogy that I think makes a ton of sense. So, I've mentioned before that I have quite a few family members very near and dear to me who suffer with anxiety. And that anxiety can be crippling. It can be that true panic attack, shaking, heart racing, miserable experience. And so I'm constantly listening to things like the Mindset Mentor so that I can learn more about how to help them. And it definitely helps me too. Please don't think that I am without any anxiety. My anxiety just manifests a little differently. So, in this episode, he talked about that if you have a bird, right? And this bird flies and is enjoying flying and everything is going great. And then they land in a lake. And when they get to the lake, they get comfortable and they're like, oh, I like this lake. This lake is nice. And they paddle around in the lake, and a day turns into a week, turns into a month, turns into a year, and they're hanging out at the lake, right? But they really, really like the lake when the lake is calm. However, when the lake gets bumpy because the wind picks up or the weather is bad or it's raining, that bird forgets that they're actually capable of flying away because they've gotten comfortable. They've gotten comfortable in this space and they're like, this is how I react to things, and this is what I do, and this is where I live, and this is where I am. And they forget that they have the ability to remove themselves from the situation, that they could fly away, that they could move on, that they could say, you know what? I'm not going to stay in the lake because the lake is messy right now. I can come back to the lake when the lake is less messy, but it's okay to leave. And I found so much. I could just really, really relate to that particular analogy because I think many of us are sitting in a lake that we don't need to sit in, and it's messy and it's scary and it's bad. And we're sitting there dealing with it when we could fly away. So I think that relates to what Evan chose to talk to us about, because he talked about the control that we have over our circumstances and how we react is actually something we can rewire our brains to do differently. And so my encouragement to you today is to think about what it is that you might need to do differently. Maybe you need to fly out of the lake. Maybe you need to just take a minute to go, oh, wait a minute. I have more control over this than I realized. You guys have heard me say your sphere of control is teeny tiny and your sphere of influence is unstoppable. That's all the same thing, right? We're all saying the same thing, which is we get to control how we react to things and we get to shift out of being stuck. So thank you, Evan, for the reminder. Thank you to my mindset mentor friend who also gave us that reminder. Evan said one other thing that I couldn't help but smile for. He said that all people really want is to be supported, heard, and feel important. That sounded super familiar to me because remember, my definition of fun, people quit things that aren't fun, but my definition of fun is that people feel valued and appreciated. People are given a voice and they're allowed to use it, and people are able to leverage their talents for the greater good. So, supported, heard, important, valued and appreciated, that's supported, heard, given a voice, and allowed to use it, and important, being able to contribute to the greater good by leveraging their talents. So, you and I have a pretty similar way of looking at things, right? Which is cool. And so, I want you to walk away from this episode recognizing that you do have a whole lot more influence than you realize. You can choose to see the good. You can choose to have gratitude. You can choose to behave and react to your circumstances, or you can choose not to react. It was Amy Woodall who recently said that life doesn't happen to us, it reacts to us, and we get to decide what those reactions are going to be. So, today on Productive Joy, I'm hopeful that you are thinking about, you know what, I do have a little bit more influence than I realized. And I do have the ability to push through things. And I do have the autonomy to fly out of the lake. Like, you don't have to stay. I'm not telling you to run when things get hard. That's not it either. But just recognizing that if you're stuck in the muck and you are ruminating on the bad, you can fly away. It's okay. It's important. It's an option, and it's a really good option. So I hope that you'll take it. Today and every day, I am very hopeful that you are finding some productive joy in your life, that you are starting to see the positive, that you are recognizing that there are good things out there that you could choose to focus on. And most importantly, I very much hope that you are figuring out a way to turn fun into action.